the School Culture by Design podcast, and you are listening from all kinds of different places. And we are celebrating the fact that we are coming towards the end of summer, I guess. I can't believe it. School's going to be starting for some of you right away. Some of you have another month. Wherever you are today, I just want to say celebrate summer. Maybe have a little ice cream, get in some water, and mostly fill yourself, because I know that so many of us have a lot of work coming back. A lot of administrators have been at it for a while. Some of you are starting new jobs, and you are so excited. And so are we, because we know that there's this group of students that get to be back on campus full time for the first time in 18 months. And what a great opportunity for us to all bounce forward. Some people talk about bouncing back, but we want to talk about bouncing forward. And today we're wrapping up our Culture Levers series. If you have been following us, we've defined our 4 culture levers, or areas of focus that can be leveraged as we build a thriving school culture, creating that place that no one wants to leave. We've covered already communication, onboarding or reboarding, the orientation process. We've also talked about gatherings, whether that be in PD, staff meetings, department meetings. Today, we're going to talk about how do we celebrate and address concerns that you can maybe use this fall as you start back to school. When you think about celebrations, what are we going to do when something special happens in somebody on our campus, whether it be student or staff's life? How do we celebrate that? Make sure that they know that, hey, we see you, we hear, we know you're here. And then what about the concerns when something really is challenging? And so buckle up. I want to give you a bunch of ideas, some possibilities, get into your mind a little bit, but mostly to say, hey, thank you for being excited enough to tune in and consider how we can work together to create that school that no one wants to leave. We were doing one of our culture events a while back, and an administrator from Las Vegas, she shared this, and I thought, how true is it? She said, our school's kind of on the east side. A lot of our staff drive past 5 or 10 schools that they could work at to get where we work. And she said, I love our school. I love our kids. I love our community. But she said, I know the truth is, you drive a half hour, you pass those schools thinking, I could teach math or English or science there. And she said, I want to create a school that people don't even get tempted to change campuses. She said, I want to create a place where people are like, it's worth the drive. And I wonder how many of you are sitting here thinking, absolutely, because some of you work in a city big enough that, people have choices. Some of you, you're in a smaller area where maybe they don't have choices of a different high school, but they could go to middle school. And a few people have the type of certificate or job title that they can move to a different school completely. And so how do we do that? Well, just recently, we've talked about flash mobs before. The old flash mob idea was, all of a sudden you stand up at the mall and start singing, and people are like, is that person crazy? And then 20 other people join in, and people are like, oh, this is cool. Remember 10, 15 years ago, people used to videotape those and share them on social media. Well, then the whole idea of flash mobbing started shifting to, hey, let's help somebody move, or let's help someone pack. Or, a lot of churches and tight communities have flash mob people with food when there's a funeral or when somebody has surgery. And we just set up these meal plans where 3 days a week someone takes some food, and try not to every time take them, store-bought lasagna, and get a little bit more organized. And some of y'all are laughing going, yeah, that happens sometimes. And a friend of mine lost her husband in the last 12 months. And she said, I'm not the person who reached out for help. People say, what can we do to help? She said, I'm okay. And she said, but what happened was, she said, people started doing these little things. And she said, finally, one of them said, hey, you pick between these 2 dates because we're going to come and work on your property. I think she's got an acre or two. And because of her husband's illness and her kids being gone, they didn't have a lot of time to spend on the property. And the person said, no, we're coming whether you want us or not. Pick which of these 2 Saturdays you want. And she said, I picked one. She said, I thought, 5 or 6 people might show up. She said, when I walked out to see them, there were like 35 people. And they were doing all kinds of things that needed to be done, things that we'd been wanting to be doing for years or just didn't have time. And she said, it was the coolest thing. And then as she's sharing this story with me, she starts to cry. And she said, I've always loved our school, but that took me to a deeper place, a place I had never really thought of before. And she says, as you were talking about flash mobs today, I realized that's what they did for me. And I just want you to know that stuff matters. And she says, I've got another 5 or 6, maybe 8 years in my career, and I want to spend them at this school with these people. And I wonder how many of you are like, yeah. So the thought is, how do we foster this place where we can really celebrate, support people, whether they're going the highs or lows that just come in life with a staff as big as you have? Maybe you're a small school with 22 of you. Maybe you're a big school with 250 of you. And I think that, how do we do that? Well, first of all, I think that as an administrator, first thing, maybe take care of your department leads. And maybe your job is to manage your admin team, because some of you have maybe 6 or 8 administrators or 12 of you that work in the main office. Maybe your job is to take care of them. And then you think about, okay, well, how do we manage the teachers? Well, maybe if you support and encourage your department leads to say, hey, let's do these kind of things, and then give them some examples that they can do, whether they're the custodial, and maybe there's 6 or 8 of them between the morning crew and the night crew, and give them some ideas. They might go, you're right, that's good stuff. I never thought about it before. And some of you are thinking, you're right. I had one person tell me, they said, what we realized, some of our department leads are not really their superpower is not community building, but almost every one of them have someone on their team that's a great, their superpower is connecting with people. So maybe what you do is you talk to your department leads and say, hey, here's some things we want you to do, because it's too hard to do as a full staff all the time. But what if every time you met as a team, you just did a check-in? I heard of one that was really cool was, just maybe your department gets together into 8 or 10 of you, maybe 6 or 7 of you, maybe your grade level at an elementary school or middle school, and you get those 5, 6 grade teachers together. It's just a stand-up meeting. And before you get into the real curriculum of the meeting, is you say, hey guys, let's just take 5 minutes. Let's do a quick 1-minute check-in. Each person goes around. There's 6 of us. It'll take us 6 minutes. Give us 1 minute. What are some highs? What's our lows? Just check in. Because here's what I know. In the last week here in our office, one of the people, her father had a heart thing where he just had to have a stent. And while it was no big deal to him, he's like, no big deal. But for the family, it was like, yeah, this could go a lot of different ways. And then another staff member, their baby turned 1 and they had a big party. So we took about 15 minutes, just the 4 of us sit down, and we just talked. And the plan was it was going to be 5 or 6 minutes, but you know what? We weren't in a big rush. We didn't have a lot of other things planned. So we chatted, and that's just the kind of stuff that makes people feel like I'm connected, I matter here. It establishes that sense of belonging. Because when you think, okay, do we really have time there's a full staff? Well, some of you know, if you've got 85 people in for a staff meeting, sometimes you get real structured. People come in, you give them a number or a letter, say, hey, find your group. And now they're a mixed group. Sometimes just say, hey, guys, you're sitting at a table with 5 people, circle around and, just share what was a high and what was a low over the last week or two since we met last. And bottom line is someone's going to say, hey, I got a new truck. Someone else might say, hey, I found out that my mom's going to have to be put in memory care. And all of a sudden people are like, whoa, okay, how can I support you? Well, Thursday and Friday, we got to move her in. So whether we can get a sub or if you guys can help me out, it just allows us to be people first and professional second. But what I think is really powerful is it allows people to feel like they matter. There's a book by the Heath brothers called The Power of Moments. And you might want to flip through it, whether you buy it or not. You're at a bookstore and just kind of skim through it and go, oh my gosh, there's so many great stories of those moments that make people feel so connected. I think another thing that you might consider is just an impromptu staff meeting. What if once or twice a year you just did something to celebrate? And it's kind of interesting because some of you heard me tell the stories about Lake Stevens High School a couple of years ago. They just said, hey, staff, we need to meet with you. There's no emergency, but it's really important. Can you meet in the library? School's out at 2:50. Meet us there at 3. It's going to be a 10-minute meeting. We just need to share something with you. They walked in, they had a big screen set up, and they said, we just want to tell you we love you, we thank you. They pulled the screen out of the way. I think it was ice cream sundaes or some treat. So we just want to tell you we love you, and you are so important on this campus. Grab a treat, walk out with a friend, just thank you. As you get in the car, look in the mirror and say, I'm so glad to work at Lake Stevens. And that's what it was. It was just one of those impromptu celebrations. And I wonder how many sitting there going, yes, we need those. And we're in a time of year right now, people are coming back. There's this little Facebook, Twitter thing going around that says, hey, the best PD we can have is just send us to our classroom and let's just prepare. And so some schools are going to do that. Others, I hope you realize this is a year that we've been separated. We've been isolated. More people have AirPods in their ears. You can't really talk to them because they're busy. It's hard to say hi to them. So I'm going to ask you, just take a few minutes. Another thing you can do is just a look back celebration. Well, how cool would it be if you guys do a little research the next week or two and find out, has someone got their doctorate, or maybe just someone got their master's degree, someone got some advanced degree, and in some way with your staff, celebrate them. Take them a flower or something in their classroom or at the back to school staff meeting, celebrate them with some claps and maybe give them a little gift card. What about someone who's had a baby in the last year? Someone last week, we were on a call and someone said, yeah, I finally got to have my wedding. Well, what are you talking about? They said it was planned like in June of 2020, and finally we had it in July of 2021. Can you imagine how much fun it would be to celebrate them at whether it's a department meeting, grade level meeting, some way to say, or those retirements. I wonder how cool it would be if you had somebody retire in June of 2020 and they were on your staff for 10, 15 years. Maybe you can get them come back to this first staff meeting you guys have, or maybe this September staff meeting, in some way give them some little token. But for them to say, yes, you remembered. Well, what about someone who just retired in June or July? That's the thing is, can we do some look back, some things that we might have celebrated, we might have acknowledged, but because of COVID, we couldn't do it, and to bring them back in a way that says, yeah, we're going to do this in a really cool way. I think some of you have heard us talk over the years about the love list. Sometimes we want to give our staff something special, so we give them all a coffee, and half of them don't drink coffee. Or we're trying to figure out what to do. Well, the whole idea of the love list, and we'll make this available in the show notes, is that you ask people, what do you love? Your morning drink, your afternoon snack, your favorite color, your favorite music, whatever it is. And sometime during the year, you give them something that's off that love list. Well, one of the things that's really cool is to ask them some of those things that give you more information. Do you like to be celebrated in a big way or in a quiet way? And sometimes people are like, yeah, I love it when I walk in, the whole staff's there. JJ, one of our buddies, is opening a brand new school in the next week or so in Oklahoma. He said one time he was working in a school as a teacher, and he said they'd had a staff member who was off campus for 6 months doing chemo or radiation. And when she came back, they said if the whole staff does something, it's going to freak her out. But they got like her 6 or 8 best friends, and they were by the door when she came in. They did a little gauntlet, 6 or 8, giving her hugs and high fives, whatever they could do, and took her to the room and just celebrated for 10 minutes and let her know, we're glad you're back. And some of you are like, yeah, I know some people on our staff that are much more 6 or 8 people style than 85 of you being in a gauntlet. But there's others, they would love the 85. But we have so much diversity in terms of how people like to be welcomed and greeted and all that. So that's what we want to do, is just give you some thoughts on how can we celebrate people. How can we take care of them when something's challenging's happened? There are people, sometimes it's a car accident. And so a couple of you are like, hey, we've got an extra car. Can you use it while your car's in the shop instead of having to rent something? And those little simple things turn out not to be so little. And some of you are sitting here going, you're right. Those are the kind of things that make someone feel like, I like this staff. Because you guys know it's not always going to be easy. There's going to be challenges, new learnings, new things coming at us. But I love it when we say, you know what, we're better together and we're here. So here's what we want you to know is that this is a wrap of those culture levers. We want to do 4 weeks of them. And some of you have been here for all 4. So hopefully you found the value. If you haven't, you might roll back and pick a couple of those up before we start doing some new ones. And we just want to give you some ideas that you might consider as you come back this fall and this summer. Some of you are like, no, we don't come back till September. Oh, my Canadian and maybe Washington folks, yes, that's awesome. But a lot of you are already back in July and August. So whatever we can do to support you. Want to let you know that October 13th and 14th, we're doing a virtual school culture workshop. Hopefully, it may be our last one. We're hoping to do some in-person ones soon. And then some of you have actually asked us, are we doing breaking down the walls in person? Absolutely. I think we've got about 160 days already booked this coming school year. So if that's something you'd like to do or find out more about, just reach out to somebody in our office, because these kids need to be connected. And I think it was Brene Brown said we're wired for connection. And our students are just like, oh my gosh, I just want to see your teeth. Really, they just want to be there and laugh and smile. And the cool part about breaking down the walls, there's just so many great moments when kids are laughing and listening and going, wow, I'm not the only one. So any way that you can get those kids, your staff connected, we want to do what we can to help you. So visit our website at www.learningforliving to learn more. And thank you for listening. If you'll hit subscribe and follow our podcast, we just want to be part of helping you create that school that no one wants to leave. Until next time, this is Phil Boyd. Take care, y'all. Cheers.